There is a stretch of about 36 hours between a Friday burial and a Sunday morning that the four Gospels barely touch. The West kept those 3 days as a sentence. The Ethiopian Church kept them as a chapter. Same death, same Lord, two different lengths of telling. And the longer one walks you straight into the hours, no Sunday sermon will read aloud. The silence between the cross and the empty tomb, where the question is not how he died, but where he went. I sat with that silence the year I buried my wife. So I went and found the book they set aside, and I want to read you the page. Think about what we actually do with that Saturday. We bury him on Friday. We celebrate the empty tomb on Sunday. And the day in the middle, the day his body was in the ground and his name was on no living tongue, we skip clean over. No Sunday sermon I ever sat under read me what Saturday holds. I had to go looking for it myself. Here is the book I found. The Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church carries a broader canon than the one most of us were handed, and inside its Passion tradition, the hours between the cross and the rising are not silence. They are a scene. Now hear me carefully, because this is where I want to be honest with you. This was not a theft. The Western Church reached its list of books at a council table, and the Ethiopian Church reached a different one. A decision, not a robbery. I believe that distinction matters more than the loud headlines let it. And even the Bible most of us already own keeps a small door open to it. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 19 says that Christ went and preached to the spirits in prison. One verse. The West kept the door. The Ethiopian line walked through it. So, the question under all of this is the oldest one a grieving person asks. Where do the dead wait? Where was he, those hours? And where are the people we have lowered into the ground? I am not going to hand you a verdict and tell you to swallow it. I am going to read it for yourself, chapter and verse, and lay the page in front of you the way I had to lay it in front of myself. Then you decide what you do with it. That is the whole promise of this channel. Not a sermon, not a lecture. One man at a kitchen table with the book they set aside, showing you what he found in the hours nobody reads aloud. Stay with me. This one took me years to be ready to tell. Let me start with the number, because the number is where most people first feel the surprise. The Bible, sitting in most American homes, carries 66 books. The Bible carried by the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church carries around 81. That is not a typo. Same Christ, same cross, same empty tomb, and a table of contents 15 books longer. Most teachers I grew up under never mentioned that gap once. I do not think that was malice. I think it simply was not their tradition to mention. Here is the part I want you to hold gently. A longer Bible is not automatically a truer Bible, and a shorter one is not automatically a stripped one. I have come to believe both lists were assembled by faithful people doing their honest best with the books in front of them. The Ethiopian canon kept writings the Western canon eventually set to the side, books like Enoch and Jubilees, and a fuller telling of the Passion. The Western Protestant canon settled on its 66 and called that the boundary. Two churches, two councils, two different answers to the same question. Which books carry the weight? Think about what those 15 extra books even are, because the names alone tell you something. The Book of Enoch, which the New Testament Book of Jude actually quotes by name. The Book of Jubilees, a retelling of Genesis that fills in the gaps. The first and second Maccabean. The broader collection the Ethiopian Church calls its own, books that early believers read and treasured for centuries before any council drew a final line. These were not strange documents smuggled in from nowhere. Many of them were circulating among the earliest churches, read aloud, copied carefully, loved. The question was never whether they existed. The question was where each church would draw its boundary. And that question, which books belong, was never answered by a voice from heaven with a finished index. There was no golden table of contents lowered down from the sky. There was no angel who walked into a room and said, "These 66 and no more." It was answered by men in rooms, over years, weighing what the churches already read aloud on Sunday, arguing, praying, sometimes disagreeing for decades. That is not a scandal. That is just history, and I would rather tell you the history straight than dress it up. I think the straight version respects you more. So let me name the rooms, because vague talk about councils is how rumors get started. Around the year 363, a gathering called the Council of Laodicea drew up an early list of approved books. 30 years later, the Synod of Hippo in 393, and then the Council of Carthage in 397, listed the books the Western Church would treat as scripture. Centuries later, in 1546, the Council of Trent formally fixed the Catholic list in response to the Reformation. Names, dates, rooms full of ordinary, fallible, prayerful men. Notice the words I am using. I am saying decided. I am saying listed. I am saying set aside. I am not saying the words that get thrown around online, the loud accusations that somebody stole your Bible in the dark. I have read enough history to be tired of that framing. A canon is a decision a community makes about which books it will live by. The Ethiopian Church made one decision. The Western Church made another. You can disagree with either one without turning it into a conspiracy. And I think the honest version is actually more interesting than the conspiracy version. Because if it was a decision, then you are allowed to go back and read what was decided against. You are allowed to pick up the book that sat on the other side of the line and ask, what did this one say? My father would have understood every word of this. He set type for our church back in the Mississippi Delta in a little print shop that smelled of ink and hot metal. Every week he laid out the church bulletin by hand, letter by letter, backward in the press, so it would read forward on the page. That man handled the words of the church more directly than any preacher. He touched them with his fingers, and in 50 years of setting that type, my father never once printed a line from the book I am about to read you. Not because he was hiding it, because his Bible simply did not carry it. You cannot set type for a page you have never been handed. He worked with the 66, faithfully, beautifully, until his hands gave out. I did not know there was anything past that boundary until long after he was gone. I have wondered more than once what he would have made of the longer book. I think it would have kept him up nights, the way it kept me up. To understand how the longer book survived at all, you have to travel to a place most Sunday schools never mention, East Africa, the Kingdom of Axum, a powerful Christian empire that embraced the faith back in the 4th century, around the same years those Western councils were meeting. While Rome argued, Axum believed, and Axum kept its own books in its own language. That language is called Ge'ez, an ancient African tongue that most of the world has never heard spoken. It is to the Ethiopian Church roughly what Latin is to the old Roman Church, a sacred language kept for worship and scripture long after ordinary people stopped speaking it on the street. The Ethiopian Church preserved its scriptures in Ge'ez for 1600 years, an unbroken line of believers copying every page by hand, chanting the words at dawn and guarding their canon while empires rose and fell around them. And they did it in places that will stop your heart if you ever see a picture of them. In the town of Lalibela, believers carved entire churches straight down into solid rock, whole sanctuaries cut from the mountain itself, and in those stone churches, the chanting has never stopped. Priests still wrap the old books in cloth and read the longer canon aloud, the way it has been read since before most of the West had a Bible in its own tongue at all. I have sat with that fact for a long time. A black African church, older than most of the denominations arguing about it online, quietly held the longer story the whole time, in a language few outsiders could read, in churches carved into the rock. It was never lost, it was kept, somewhere in a stone church hewn into a mountainside. While my father set his 66 books in type back in the Delta, somebody was reading aloud the chapter the West had folded shut. The two of them never knew about each other. That thought alone changed how I hold my own Bible. Open the 4 Gospels to the death of Jesus and watch what happens to the clock. Matthew chapter 27 takes you all the way to the burial. Joseph of Arimathea wraps the body in clean linen, lays it in a new tomb cut from the rock, and rolls a great stone against the door. And then the text goes quiet. Mark does the same. Luke does the same. John does the same. Luke chapter 23 verse 56 gives you the last human action before the silence. The women who had followed him prepared spices and ointments, and then Luke says, they rested the Sabbath day according to the commandment. They rested. That is the last thing anybody does on the page. The whole world that loved him lies down and goes still, because the law said Saturday was for rest, and grief obeys the law even when the heart cannot. So here is what I want you to actually see. Between that resting on Friday evening and the running to the tomb on Sunday morning, the 4 Gospels say almost nothing. A guard is posted in Matthew. A stone is sealed. Pilate gives the order. The soldiers take their watch, and the page falls quiet. But about him, about where he was and what he was doing in those hours, the canonical 4 are nearly silent. They tell you the tomb was guarded. They do not tell you what was happening inside the world of the dead. I read those chapters 100 times before I noticed the silence. 100 Easters, 100 sermons, and I never once stopped on the Saturday. Most of us never notice it because Sunday comes so fast in the preaching that Saturday never gets a breath. The preacher says he died, and almost in the same sentence says he rose, and the day in between vanishes like it was nothing. But that day was not nothing to the people who lived it. For the disciples, that Saturday was the longest day of their lives. Their Lord was in the ground, their hope was sealed behind a stone, and God was completely silent. The silence is right there on the page, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. And I have come to believe that silence is exactly where a grieving person lives. Now, the Western Bible does not leave you with nothing in that gap. It leaves you with hints, small and strange, scattered like clues. And this is where I have to slow all the way down, because most teachers race past these verses. And I have come to believe they are some of the most important verses in the New Testament for anyone standing at a grave. 1 Peter chapter 3, verses 18 and 19. Peter writes that Christ was put to death in the flesh, but made alive in the Spirit, by which also he went and preached unto the spirits in prison. Read that again, slowly. He went somewhere. While his body lay wrapped in linen behind a sealed stone, Peter says his spirit went and preached to spirits that were in prison. Peter does not say he simply slept in the tomb and waited for Sunday. He says he traveled and he spoke to the dead. That is an astonishing claim to find tucked into a letter most of us skim. The dead are somewhere they can be preached to. And on the very Saturday the Gospels go silent, the Lord went to them. I sat with that one verse for a long time before I let myself believe it meant what it plainly says. I kept waiting for someone to explain it away. But the words are not complicated. He went, he preached to spirits in prison. Peter, who walked with him, wrote it down as simply as that. Then go one chapter further to 1 Peter chapter 4 verse 6, where Peter says the gospel was preached also to them that are dead, and widen it out with Ephesians chapter 4 verse 9, where Paul writes that before Christ ascended on high, he first descended into the lower parts of the earth. Down then up. Most teachers say these verses are obscure, and they leave them alone. I understand the caution, but I have come to read them as a door the Western canon left standing open. 3 small windows looking into a room the 4 Gospels would not enter. The Ethiopian Passion does not just glance through that window. It opens the door and walks in. And that is where I want to take you next. So let me show you what the longer tradition does with that open door, where the 4 Gospels give you one buried body and one sealed stone. The Ethiopian Passion tradition narrates the descent as a scene you can stand inside. It takes the single verse in Peter, he went and preached to the spirits in prison, and it lets the camera roll. The Lord does not lie still in the dark. He goes down into the realm of the dead, into the place where the departed had been waiting since the beginning. And the longer telling follows him there, step by step. In that older account, there are gates. There is a multitude. The dead are not nothing, not erased, not asleep in some blank nowhere. They are waiting, gathered, aware, behind doors that have never once opened from the inside. And into that waiting place comes a light that the place has never held. I want to be careful with my words here, because I am describing the tradition's telling, not handing you a transcript from heaven. But what the 4 Gospels leave as one quiet verse, the Ethiopian line tells as a full scene, with movement and voices and the slow turning of a door that the dead had given up on. And the first time I read it, I understood why a church would keep it. Many of us were handed a faith that runs straight from Friday to Sunday and treats the middle as empty air. The longer tradition refuses to leave the dead off screen. It insists that even in the hours his own body lay in the ground, something was happening for the people already under it. I have sat with that telling for years now, and I still feel the weight of it settle on me every time. It does not feel like fantasy. It feels like somebody finally answered the part of the story I most needed answered, because I came to this page carrying something. I need to tell you the truth about that, or none of the rest of this will land the way it should. My wife Della died in 2014. Cancer, slow then fast, the way it goes. I had been a churchman my whole life, sat under good preaching, believed what I was handed for 50 years. But the night after we buried her, I could not sleep. I sat at the kitchen table in the dark, and for the first time in my life, I asked it plainly, not as theology, but as a man with a hole in his chest. Where is she right now? Not Sunday. Right now, tonight, while her body is in the ground and the house is this quiet. And I realized the Sunday answer, the empty tomb, beautiful as it is, did not reach down into the Saturday I was actually living in. I needed to know about the in-between, the waiting, the silence after a death. That was the night the longer book stopped being a curiosity and became something I had to find. So, when I tell you the Ethiopian Passion fills the Saturday silence, understand that I did not come to it as a scholar hunting a footnote. I came to it as a widower who could not stand the blank space where my wife had been. The four Gospels gave me the resurrection. I believe the resurrection with everything in me. But it was the longer telling, the descent into the place of the waiting dead, that finally spoke to the night I could not sleep. And I think there are more of us carrying that exact silence than would ever say so out loud. Let me read you the shape of it, the way the older Passion tradition carries the descent. I am going to slow my voice down, because this is the part I came all this way for, and I want you to hear it the way I first heard it. He goes down. The text moves him from the cross, past the sealed tomb, down into the place of the dead, the realm the old writers called the abode of departed souls. And he is not a prisoner there. He does not arrive as one more soul swallowed by the grave. He walks in as the one with authority, the only person who ever entered death, already holding the keys to it. Picture it the way the longer telling paints it. A vast grey waiting, full of every righteous soul who ever died believing in a promise they never lived to see. Abraham is there, the man who was promised more descendants than the stars and died with one son of the promise. Moses is there, who saw the land from a mountain and was buried before he could enter it. The prophets are there, the ones who spoke of a coming day and then closed their eyes in the dark without seeing it. Generations who died facing forward, trusting a dawn that had not yet come. And now, into that long grey patience, into a country that has known nothing. But waiting since the first human heart stopped, a light moves that the place has never contained. And one by one, the waiting dead turn toward it. That is the scene. Christ moving among the waiting righteous, not as a ghost, but as the living God walking through the country of the dead. I read that passage out loud at my kitchen table the first winter I had it, and my voice cracked on it. An old man alone, reading to nobody. Read it for yourself when you can find it. Do not take my word for the feeling. Sit with the picture of him walking down to the ones who waited longest, and see what it does in your own chest. It undid something in mine that 50 years of Sunday mornings had left tied in a knot. Now let me do the honest thing and hold this longer telling right up against the four Gospels, side by side, so you can see exactly where they agree and where one says more. Because I am not asking you to trade your Bible for another one. I am asking you to lay them next to each other. The four Gospels are unshakable on the death itself. John chapter 19, verse 30. Jesus says, "It is finished," and he bowed his head and gave up the ghost. That is John's word. Gave up the ghost, the spirit released, the death real and complete. Not a swoon, not a faint, not a man pretending. A death witnessed with the spirit handed over. Mark chapter 15 gives you the centurion standing at the foot of the cross, the hardened Roman soldier who has watched 100 men die, who watches this one die and says, "Truly this man was the Son of God." Of all the people to confess it, the executioner. The Gospels nail down the death with witnesses, with a soldier's confession, with a spear in the side, with a sealed and guarded tomb. They leave you no room to doubt that he truly died. And that matters more than you might think for everything I am about to show you. Because if the death is real, then the descent is not a metaphor. If he truly died, then he truly went where the dead go. The longer telling only makes sense because the Gospels are so certain about the death. You cannot descend into the realm of the dead unless you have actually died. And the four Gospels make sure you know he did. What the four Gospels confirm is the death and the resurrection, the two solid shores. What they do not narrate is the crossing in between, the hours from the last breath to the rolled back stone. That is the honest line between them. The canonical four give you the bookends and leave the middle in shadow. The Ethiopian Passion keeps the same death, the same Lord, the same empty tomb. and then dares to walk you through the dark water in the middle that the Gospels only point at. Same shores, one of them maps the crossing. So, what actually happened to the longer telling? Here is where I have to be the most careful, because this is exactly the spot where people reach for the dramatic word. They want me to say it was deleted, stolen, buried in the dark by men afraid of the truth. And I will not say that, because I have read the history, and the history does not support the dramatic word. What happened was quieter and in some ways stranger. The Western Church made a decision to build its New Testament on 4 short Gospels and the letters of the Apostles. 4, not 5, not 12, not the fuller Passion accounts that circulated in the early centuries. The decision was for brevity and for the writings the broadest community already trusted. The longer descent material, the scene of the dead being visited, was set aside in the West, not because somebody declared it false in a single dramatic night, but because, council by council, room by room, it did not make the short list. The Ethiopian Church, working from its own tradition in Ge'ez, kept a fuller telling. One tradition compressed the Saturday into a verse, the other let it breathe as a scene. I want you to feel the difference between those two words, compressed and erased, because the whole honesty of this rests on it. Erased means it was taken from you and the empty space lied about. Compressed means the story was made shorter, folded down the way you fold a long letter to fit a small envelope. I believe what happened to the Saturday was compression, not erasure. The door was kept, remember, 1 Peter 3:19, the spirits in prison. The West did not seal the door shut. The West kept the door and stopped describing the room behind it. That is a real loss, I think. But it is an honest kind of loss, and I would rather hand you the honest kind than the kind that sells better. And here is what that compressed Saturday was carrying, the thing I believe got folded down when the scene became a sentence. The longer tradition carries a tenderness toward the dead that the short version simply does not have room for. In the descent scene, the whole point is the freeing of those who waited. The righteous dead, the ones who died facing a promise they never got to see kept, are gathered up and led out. Here is where I land, after years with both versions. The 4 Gospels tell a grieving man that Sunday is coming. The longer telling tells a grieving man what was happening for his dead on Saturday while the world was still resting and the stone had not yet moved. I needed the second thing as badly as the first. When you have lowered somebody you love into the ground, the question is, not only will there be a resurrection someday, the question is, where are they tonight? The longer version reaches into that exact night. That is my honest read of why a grieving man reaches for it. So I keep both. I hold the 4 Gospels as the solid ground they have always been. The death confirmed, the tomb emptied, the Lord risen. And beside them, I keep the longer telling of the Saturday in between. Not as a replacement, not as a higher authority, but as the chapter that answered the part of my grief, the 4 left in shadow. I think you can hold them both, honestly. I think you can love your 66 books and still read the one that sat on the other side of the line, and let it speak to the night you could not sleep. To really understand the descent, you have to understand how the ancient world pictured death, because it was not the picture most of us grew up with. We tend to imagine that the moment a believer died, before Christ, they went straight up into glory. But that is not how the oldest scriptures describe it. They describe a realm of the dead, a holding place where every soul went down to wait. The Hebrews called it Sheol. The Greeks who translated the scriptures called it Hades. Not a lake of fire, not yet, a waiting. A vast country under the world where the dead remained, conscious, gathered, but not yet brought home. And the righteous were down there too, That is the part that startles people. The faithful dead, the prophets, the patriarchs, the ordinary believers who died trusting God, they were waiting along with everyone else behind a door that resurrection had not yet opened. They were not in torment, but they were not yet in the full presence of God either. They were waiting for someone to come down and open the door from the inside. Sit with that picture, because the whole descent depends on it. The dead are waiting. The door has never opened, and no one who goes in has ever had the authority to come back out and bring others with him. Your own Bible holds this picture, if you know where to look. Luke chapter 16. The story Jesus himself tells about the rich man and Lazarus. When the beggar Lazarus dies, he is carried to a place Jesus calls Abraham's bosom, a place of comfort, but a place clearly down among the dead, where the rich man can see him across a great gulf. Jesus describes the righteous dead resting in Abraham's bosom, waiting, comforted, but still in the realm of the departed. That is canonical. That is in the 66. The waiting place is not some invention of a removed book. It is right there in red letters, in a story the Lord told with his own mouth. The longer Passion simply takes that waiting place and shows you the day its door finally opened. I went looking for where else the dead were described as waiting, and the search took me to the book that sits at the very center of why the Ethiopian canon is different, the Book of Enoch. Now, Enoch is exactly the kind of book this whole story turns on, because Enoch is in the Ethiopian canon, and it is not in the Western one. Same situation as the longer Passion, the same line drawn, the same book kept on one side and set aside on the other. And the first time I opened the Book of Enoch, the first winter after I lost Della, I went looking for what it says about the dead. I found it in chapter 22. I remember the date because I wrote it in the margin, the way my father taught me to mark a page that mattered. Enoch chapter 22 describes the prophet being shown the place where the spirits of the dead are gathered. And he does not see one undivided crowd. He sees hollow places, deep, smooth chambers carved into a great mountain where the souls of the dead are separated and kept according to how they lived. The righteous are in one hollow with a spring of bright water. Others are set apart in another. The dead are not annihilated, not unconscious, not scattered into nothing. They are held, separated, waiting in the hollow places for the day of judgment. Read that from the page yourself, chapter 22, and you will hear the same picture Jesus drew in Luke 16. Only older, only stranger, only more detailed. I sat with the fact that this ancient book, kept all those centuries by the Ethiopian Church, was describing the very waiting room my wife had walked into. The hollow places, the separated dead, the long patience under the world. I am not telling you Enoch is on the level of the Gospels, and I want to be plain about that. But I am telling you that the picture of the waiting dead, the picture the descent of Christ depends on, runs all the way through the books the Ethiopian line kept. The waiting place is not a footnote. It is the whole reason the descent is good news. So why did the Ethiopian Church keep all of this in frame? The waiting dead, the hollow places, the long Saturday when the Western Church narrowed it down to a verse. I have turned that question over for years, and I have come to believe it is not because one tradition was honest and the other was hiding something. I think it is because they had different instincts about the silence of the grave. The Ethiopian line was comfortable holding it. The Western line wanted to move quickly to the victory. Most teachers in the West will tell you, and tell you sincerely, that what matters is the resurrection, and the in-between is speculation. We are better off leaving alone. I understand that instinct. It is careful, It keeps you from wandering off into strange territory. But here is where I have come to disagree, gently. When you narrow the story down to Friday and Sunday and skip the Saturday, you build a faith with no room in it for the waiting. And a great deal of life is the waiting. The Ethiopian Church, I believe, kept the descent in frame because it refused to leave the dead off-screen, and it refused to pretend the grave is a quick thing. I think that is a theological emphasis, not a suppression. One church hurried past the tomb, the other sat down beside it, and I will tell you who that second instinct serves. It serves the person standing at a graveside. It serves the man who just lowered his wife into the ground and has to drive home to a silent house. When you are in that hour, you do not need someone rushing you to Sunday. You need someone willing to tell you what is happening on Saturday, where your dead are right now, in the waiting, before the door opens. The longer tradition has an answer for that hour. That is what it offers, and that is why I could not put it down. I want to pause right here and ask something of you, because I have been talking for a while, and you have stayed with me. And that means something. If this is reaching you, if the silence of the Saturday is a silence you have stood in yourself, do me a favor. Leave one word in the comments. Just the word kept. Not because I am chasing numbers, but because I genuinely want to see how many of us were handed the short version and went looking for the longer one on our own. Kept. Because this book was not lost. It was kept. And while you are down there, tell me the next book you want me to open. Enoch, Jubilees, Jasher, the Fuller Gospels. I read these the slow way, one at a time, at a kitchen table, and I would rather read the one you are actually carrying a question about. So name it. No pressure, no performance. Just tell me what you need opened, and I will go find the page the way I found this one. Now we come to the moment, the hours of waiting, the gray patience, the door that never opened. The longer telling brings the descent to its turn right here, and I have read it more times than I can count, and it still stops my breath. He reaches the gates, not the gates of a city, the gates of the realm of the dead itself. The doors that have held every soul since the first grave. The doors with no handle on the inside. Every person who ever died went through those gates, one direction only. In, never out. From Abel, the first man murdered, all the way down the long line of the dead, every soul that ever stopped breathing passed through those doors and stayed. That is the wait the longer telling sets up before the turn. Untold generations behind one door, and the door had never once moved outward, and the longer tradition brings him to stand before them. Picture the scene the way the old account builds it. The realm has been the same grey quiet for as long as it has existed. The waiting dead know nothing of what happened on a hill above them on a Friday afternoon. And then something changes in the air of that place. A stirring, a murmur passing through the gathered dead. A light where there has never been light, growing at the far edge of a country that has only ever known dusk. The oldest souls lift their heads. Something is coming that has never come before. And then the doors that only ever opened inward begin to move the other way. Hear that. The grave is opening from the inside. For the first time since death began, someone with the authority of life itself is forcing the door the wrong direction, outward, toward the living world. The hinges that swung one way for every funeral in the history of the world are being turned. I read that, and I think of every graveside I have ever stood at, every door I watched close on someone I loved. And the longer telling tells me there is a hand on the other side of that door, and it pushes out. Your own Bible has the song for this exact moment, and most of us have sung it without knowing what it described. Psalm 24, verse 7. Lift up your heads, O ye gates, and be ye lift up, ye everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in. The everlasting doors, the gates told to lift their own heads, to raise themselves, because the King of glory is coming through. And the psalm does not stop there. It asks the question twice. Who is this King of glory? And it answers itself. The Lord strong and mighty, the Lord mighty in battle. A king coming through gates like a warrior coming home from a war. He has already won. The old church read that psalm as the descent, not as a parade into Jerusalem, but as the King of glory walking up to the everlasting doors of death itself and commanding them to open. Read it again with the descent in your mind, and tell me it does not read like the soundtrack to that very scene. I had sung that psalm in church my whole life, and never once pictured the gates of the grave. I pictured a city, a procession, something bright and far away. I have come to believe the old reading is closer to the bone. It undid me the first time I made that connection at my table, an old man with a concordance and a cold cup of coffee. A song I had heard my whole life was describing the moment the door of the grave broke open. And then comes the freeing, and this is the heart of the whole thing. The reason I believe a grieving church kept this story alive for 1600 years. The doors give way, and the light pours into the hollow places, and the waiting dead are brought out. Think of who is in that crowd. The righteous who died facing a promise they never saw, kept. Abraham, who was promised a nation and died owning a single burial cave. Moses, who led the people 40 years and never set foot in the land. The prophets, who were sawn in two and stoned for a word that had not yet come true. The ordinary believers nobody wrote down. The mothers and the laborers and the children. The ones who had waited longest, with no name carved anywhere. They are gathered up and led out of the dark, following the King of glory up toward the morning. The waiting is over, the patience is rewarded. The door that only ever swallowed people is now a door that releases them. I want you to sit in that image for a second, because I had to. Everyone in that crowd died before the answer came. Every single one of them held on to a promise in the dark with no proof it would ever be kept. And the longer telling says the promise came down and got them. It did not forget the ones who died early. It did not leave behind the ones who waited the longest. It went down and brought them up. And your Bible, the 66, gives you one astonishing flash of exactly this. Matthew chapter 27, verse 52. At the moment Jesus dies, Matthew says the graves were opened, and many bodies of the saints which slept arose. The graves opened. The sleeping saints rose. Matthew puts it in a single verse, almost in passing, this earthquake of the dead coming up out of the ground at the moment of the cross. Most of us read right past it. I read past it for 50 years. The four Gospels keep the flash. The longer telling keeps the whole scene the flash came from. One verse in Matthew, one full chapter in the Ethiopian line, the same earthquake of the dead. And after all those hours of silence, after the resting in the sealed stone and the waiting under the world, the Saturday is finally answered. The dead are not abandoned in the gap. The dead are being led home. I have to confess something to you now, because I have walked you all the way to the heart of this, and I owe you the truth about myself before I let you go. For 50 years I assumed that if a book mattered, it would already be in my Bible. I trusted the boundary completely, and when I first heard there was a longer telling of the Saturday, a whole tradition that walked Christ down into the realm of the dead, my first reaction was suspicion. I thought, that is embellishment. That is somebody adding drama to a story that does not need it. I was wrong to assume the longer telling did not matter. I want to say that plainly, because I spent years being quietly dismissive of something I had never actually read. It was the winter of 2016, 2 years after I buried Della, alone at my kitchen table in Detroit, that I finally opened it for myself and read The Descent all the way through. And it did not read like embellishment. It read like the answer to the exact question that had kept me up the night of the funeral. Where is she? Right now, tonight. My hands went cold on the page. Somebody had written down the thing I had been asking in the dark, and it had been sitting on the other side of a line drawn by councils 16 centuries ago. My daughter Renee kept telling me to write it down, to say it out loud, not to keep it to myself. "Daddy," she said, "people need to hear this." And I resisted her for a long time, because I am still not all the way settled about it. I am a careful man. I hold the 4 Gospels as my solid ground, and I am cautious about anything past that boundary. I am still working out exactly how much weight the longer telling should carry, but I cannot unread it. That is where I have honestly landed. Not certain, not finished, just unable to pretend I never saw the page. So hear me carefully, because this is the part I most need you to receive right. What I have shared with you today is one reading of these texts, one I have sat with, prayed over, and come to believe in deeply. It is not the only reading, and I would never hand it to you as the final word. The Christian tradition holds many honest interpretations of the Saturday, the Descent, and the Waiting Dead, and faithful people have disagreed about these things for centuries, without any of them being liars. I am not your pastor, and I am not your judge. I am a man at a table with a book he found, telling you what it did to him. Take what I have read you back to your own pastor. Hold it up to your own scriptures. Weigh it with your own heart and your own prayers, the way I had to weigh it with mine. The page is real. The verses I cited are real. The history of the councils is real. But the meaning you make of it is yours to make, and I would not take that from you for anything. Study it for yourself. That is the only honest thing I know how to ask. So, let me tell you simply what I do with all of this, and then the rest is yours. I keep the 4 Gospels. I read them, I trust them, I stand on them. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are my solid ground, and nothing I found in the longer telling moved them an inch. They are first in my house, and they will stay first. But I keep this beside them now. The longer account of the Saturday, the descent into the place of the dead, the gates that open from the inside, the waiting ones led home. I do not put it above my Gospels. I do not even put it level with them. I put it beside them, the way you keep a letter from someone who understood your grief. Close at hand in a drawer you can reach, because some nights you need exactly what it says, and nothing else will do. That is the whole of my position. I keep the 4, and I keep this near. And I want to be honest about why I keep it near instead of folding it away. It is not because I need my Bible to be bigger. It is because the longer telling speaks to one specific hour that the short version moves too fast to reach. The hour of the waiting. I have sat with both versions long enough to know which one I reach for at 2 in the morning. And it is not always the one I was handed in church. That is not rebellion. That is a man finding the page that meets him where he actually is. Here is the honest landing, and I have tried to earn it the long way instead of declaring it at the start. The page is real. The verse is real. The history of the councils is real. Names and dates and rooms full of fallible men. I have read all of it to you straight, and I have tried hard not to dress any of it up. What you do with it, I genuinely leave to you. This was never a command. It was a witness, one man telling another what he found in the hours nobody reads aloud, and then stepping back, hands open, to let you decide. I would not respect you if I did anything less than that. If you have stayed with me this far, then I suspect you and I are carrying something similar. If you have ever buried someone you love, this chapter reads different than it does for anyone who has not. I know that, because it read one way before 2014 and an entirely different way after. The Saturday between a death and a mourning is not a doctrine for people like us. It is a room we have actually stood in. And what I most want you to take from tonight is not a position on a canon. It is this: the silence you stood in at that graveside was not the whole story. There was a Saturday happening underneath it that the four Gospels only whispered and the longer telling dared to describe. You were not wrong to need more than Sunday. I needed it too. Before we close, let me ask you plainly, if this gave you something, subscribe and stay with me, because there is another book I am going to open next. And I read them one slow page at a time, the way my father said, type, letter by letter. I am not in a hurry, and I do not think the people who watch me are either. Leave the word "kept" in the comments, so I know the short version was not the end of your searching either. Kept, because this book was never lost. It was kept on the other side of a line by an African church that would not let go of it. And tell me where you are watching from tonight, because I sit at one kitchen table in Detroit, alone with a stack of old books, and it does something for me to know how far these old pages travel and who is reading along in the dark with me. And let me leave you with this, the way I would leave it with anyone sitting across the table from me late at night. If you are holding a loss tonight, if there is a name you still reach for in a quiet house, I want to speak something gentle over you. The silence after a death is real, and I will not pretend it is small. But I have come to believe, with the four Gospels in one hand and this longer page in the other, that the silence is not the end of the story. There was movement in the dark you could not see. There was a door being opened for the ones who waited. Rest in that tonight, as much as you are able. The waiting is held. The dead are not forgotten. And the morning, when it comes for them too. One last thing before you go. This is how I read Scripture, not a prophetic word. I quote from the King James Version, unless I say otherwise. If you read it differently, I want to hear it. Drop your thought in the comments.